And I also have just 20 minutes to shower down everything that I have in my mind to you. So let's get this ball rolling. So my first question would be, how many of you recognize yourself or professionally work as a software testers? Okay. And what if I say, you all, including me, because I recognize myself as a software test engineer as well, will be eliminated or be made redundant in the next 10 years, provided we don't recognize, celebrate, recreate the human capabilities in us. Then there is some other chatbot, some AI, some other thing that's going to take over your role successfully for a lesser cost, of course. Right? So UX, or the user experience, is one aspect of software testing and also software engineering, which has been highly overlooked and demeaned to different levels. And I'm here taking this 20 minutes to let you know if there is any way that you can create a difference in your organization, in your career, this is one among it. There are other aspects as well, but user experience is one place where you can definitely bring in the difference. So let's see how. That will be the next 30 minutes, but don't worry about it. Little bit about me. I am Sowmya SRIDHARAMURTY. For work, I work as a release engineering manager at Kiva. I newly joined this workplace. What I love doing is reading, writing. I go running. I love gardening. I don't enjoy cooking much. And I'm also a mother of an 8-year-old super active son. So yeah, those are the things that I absolutely love doing in my life, apart from software testing. So if you look at the software industry, every decade, we see one theme runs too long. 30 years ago, there was always a fight between C#, Java, some other programming languages, and businesses were claiming we have the best programming tech stack, and we give the best solutions. And at the end of that decade, you can see this gap almost narrowing, and you can create anything that you see and anything that is possible in any programming language you pick. So now that distinction, the competitive advantage is gone. And then came the feature offering. Companies were every now and then claiming, promising, we have better features than our customers. We do that, we do this. This is when the functional testing gone way too deeper, and it took over most of our testing time, functional testing. And then came the era of agile transformations. But you see, most of the applications now offer more or less similar features, whether it's retail, insurance, banking, engineering, or oil and gas industry, constructions. All applications more or less looks like a twin. But then came agile transformations. We offer everything in 15 days, in 20 days, new features delivered to you. And that was the decade which ran. And now is the time when the time is taken over by user experience. The human aspects is valued more in the world of ChatGPT, in the world of AI, in the world of ML. So this is the time you have to get back to the actual roots of being human and help your team recognize why this is important and how this can add a competitive advantage to the products or the solution you're trying to build. So that's the reason is user experience. So what is user experience anyways? For those who have not come across this keyword before, it is how you interact with the customers, how you make them feel, how you make things intuitive, in alignment with the company's branding strategy is what we call user experience. And it plays a very vital role. These are some of the stats, for example, outside in the market. There are so many I can bring in and go on for days together. But these are few highlights to say why UX are now picking up or becoming the front runner in the software testing. Maybe if you think with Google, they say 50% of our users will use a website less if a website isn't mobile friendly, even if they like the business. One very good example is when I moved from London to Netherlands, I was finding it hard to find a website where I can do online shopping for my boy, for school accessories and my clothes and things like that. Apart from the usual big brands, finding a local usual website for the local players was very difficult, firstly because everything will be in Dutch. And secondly, I'm new and I don't know the right places to search for. Of course, I go for Google and I kind of search online shopping, bags, purse, whatever, shoes. And anything that shows in the first 2 pages is heavily driven by the SEO, which is search engine optimization, which mostly derives from the UI that companies are working with, right? So the search engine optimization, there are so many concepts that goes behind which test engineers are not making themselves aware about. We'll come to that point. But these are few stats. When you see, I would like to highlight a quality engineering and not just restricted to test engineering. Quality engineering runs across all the phases of software development. And we have been actively being part. Thanks for Agile for emphasizing this aspect of engineers or test engineers have to be right at the beginning of the requirement and move on until the post-production, and also the post-maintenance if required. But here, one thing, whenever I speak to a young talents, I'm in this industry for 15 years, give or take. When I speak to a young talents, you know, they take pride in saying, my company didn't have test automation. We bought up to 50% in 3 months. Oh, they didn't know they were using Selenium. I moved it to a better framework. Please don't ask me what it is. So they're taking pride in telling the technicalities of a project, but I hardly get to see any human aspects that was used to drive this change. For example, Marath in her keynote mentioned about giving feedback. Steve Watson, in another track talk, he was mentioning about how to deal with anxiety, the imposter syndrome, and making mark for yourself and not put pressuring on yourself, right? So these human aspects we kind of forget. So my point here is to say, keep the tech part, but don't forget the human aspect. And I call it as an experience engineering. You're not just as a software test engineer, but be an experience engineer where you can give a feedback respectfully, where you can inspire your team to look at the right places, where you can guide them to look at the user stats and provide what customers need, and connect with them in a better way. And that's what now the role definition is being changing, which was also mentioned in the first talk, that the test engineer is not just about clicking few buttons to raise bugs, but you are the change agents. You are the people who bring change in your teams. So be part of this experience engineering. This is one other example to say how important it is. One of the research that was conducted over different user websites, they have mentioned how every aspect of a UI is going to drive an impact for the user and how you should be aware while you're testing the application. I'll skip this. It's just user interface, space filler. Let's move on to some more. Like I said, I can continue to give these stats for 2 more days, but that's not my intention. But here is to highlight, when I start UX, or when I moved my team towards bringing their attention towards UX or user experience, I had to drive at multiple levels. For me, the first part is to make them realize how a browser works, what aspects of the browser has direct impact on the application and its performance. Did you know that if you have multiple tabs in an application, and when you click from one tab to another, and if there is a jump in the tab, it is going to reduce the performance and also the SEO ranking in the Google indexing? Yes, it does. So the awareness or the education of how a browser treats a particular website or our development and its impact on the overall performance is very important. So getting to know some basics, for example, this is from Google, what LCP is, how this has impact on the application. I would love to get deeper into this, but I don't have time. My idea is to introduce you to these concepts so that when you get back to work, you do a little bit more research and make yourself aware. This is a tech part. And then comes the human aspect, where I want to highlight a little bit more. If you have to win a game, there are 2 ways. One, you practice every day, become the best version of yourself, keep moving one step at a time, and when the time comes, you strike to become the best, which is great. There is another strategy, which I like. If you have to win a game, you just have to know how your opponent plays and know what goes into it. And that's exactly the strategy that I apply. When I took over UX, I started with 0 knowledge on it. And when I had to learn and had to contribute towards UX testing to start with, and then build a team who can contribute towards UX testing, especially for the ERP platform, which is enterprise resource B2B kind of a solution. For me, is to first understand the arena, understand the game, and that is possible by talking to people, by getting the feedback, especially with UX and UI colleagues in the team. Any UX designer, when they design a UI, they keep multiple laws into mind. You don't have to by heart all these things or go through every day so that you don't forget. But the idea here is every law has a meaning, and it will be translated into how a UI is built. The idea is you recognize, make yourself aware of these laws, see what laws are applied to the UI that is built in your specific applications, come up with a template or a test plans to ensure this is covered on a routine tests. Again, this UX test need not have to happen on an everyday basis. But whenever there is a major UI changes, especially if you're starting something new from ground up or doing some reconstructions of the website, it makes a lot of sense. So I stuck to the second strategy of knowing the game well by talking to the UX designers, trying to understand each law and how they're translating every law into the web page. Let's say for one example, I may skip some slides, but it will be here for you to access. This is a Hicks law. So in the Hicks law states that the time it takes to make a decision increases with the number of complexity of choices available. Let's say one example. That was the Amazon screen if you see, right? Look at the options it had. You go bonkers. You absolutely hate the experience. But if you see today's UI, you see it's nicely grouped with the pleasant colors and giving you the right prompts wherever you have to be so that it makes the search easier and your experience better. So is a Facebook. Look at the way they started. Just a login form, also had a user creation form, then moved out to a little bit more, a better format. And today's screen, if you see, this is a present screen if you log in, it's just login credentials. You don't have to overwhelm the user with a lot of details. Okay, Sowmya, but I don't create UI. Why should I know? I'm a test engineer. But you're a change manager in the team. Feedback, connecting back to our keynote. Feedback, give the active feedback to your team. I'm a user. When I put myself into a user's shoes, I don't see it makes sense for me. It's too much of an information. It confuses. It's boring. It's dirty. Or I'll quote Marath again, ugly baby, right? So this is a Postal's law. Postal's law is usually used for some of these aspects, like conversion scenarios. You're giving country currency. You want to convert it to EUR, to some other INR or USD. And some texts, like you're giving the first name, but there is a possibility that you click on caps lock, and everything becomes like the text comes in a caps. And the application is not taking the text. Why? Because you're supposed to type only the small letters. So rather, why don't handle it technically within in the backend code so that you don't have to burden the user with a lot of details. Accept whatever they're giving. Convert the data the way you need. So you can see this in the login form, membership, club memberships, retail applications, insurance forms. In all these places, Postal's law is usually applied. If you don't trust me, a simple activity, go back to your desk tomorrow, pick up any insurance company or a banking application, just check how it's going to behave, okay? This is one example in the Google Maps. I mistyped the name, but yet it took it and did give me the most nearest possible solution or answer for me. This is a pick and roll. It's about the first and the last or the most important parts of the application, how it's leaving a feedback. If I'm in the retail screen, I want to check out and the payment fails, it not only irritates, but I'm also into anxiety. What happened? Did anybody take my take my amount or my money from the bank? And I don't know what's happening. If there is a 302, which is a redirection of the websites, you don't know how that redirection is happening. You don't know what that 404 is. So nowadays, teams are making this look more simple, more aesthetic, and less anxious as much possible. So these are the part of the designs that is considered as a part of user experience, which is great. Now, after listening to me, you all get pumped up. Tomorrow you go to your desk and say, yes, I listened to Sowmya. Today, I'm going to take up user experience as my work, and I'm going to bring in a change. It's great. But with all the conferences that I have attended, one thing that has come very constantly as a feedback is I went back as a change agent, but my team is still the same. I am not able to drive the changes. This is why I want to introduce you to the circle of influence. So in the circle of influence is just to let you know, if you have to bring in a user experience change, there are few roles which has higher inputs or let's say has higher weightage for their feedback as compared to the other roles. So look yourself where you are in this influence circle and try to draw or push or bring in the influence in the necessary channels. If I am a test engineer who's just joined a company or maybe with 2-3 years experience who's fairly new to this industry, then I'm not taken seriously for sure. Yes, we have to try to positively influence, but if that's not working, your first immediate point of conversation should be with your team leads or managers who can actively listen to you and make sense of what you're trying to tell them. And in turn, they have to bring in this influence with the user experience experts if you have in your company. You see anyone above, like an agile coach, ops team, system admin, they have very less say, practically, and also professionally. But if you have anything to say, they can't, or it makes no sense for them to directly jump over to the user experience experts to give feedback. It will not be well received. Let's see things more practically in life, right? So you have to use your right channels to influence the decision sometimes. But if you know a UX expert in your team with whom you have a friendly connection and you can bring in the difference, it's a different story. But that's not the case all the time, isn't it? So that is the reason why I'm making you aware of the circle of influence. Use it wisely to drive the changes. So this is one simple example. I have 2 minutes, so which is great. This is one simple example where I have worked with my team to do the UX or a user experience testing with my team of 6 test engineers with varying experiences. So first when I started, we only had the EL. So we identified the persona, we identified the UI that we have to test, and we picked up some Pendo statistics. Pendo is one of the tools that we can track the user behavior of the application. So then we checked what was the behavior, how the application is being used, what they are doing, et cetera, et cetera. And then we started testing randomly. But then we realized we are heading nowhere. And we started building these details with little more as part of our test plan. We started adding scenarios. We started adding buttons, part of the screens, where we have to do, and what are the configurations we need. Trust me, we work across 6 to 7 test environments. Don't ask me why, and I don't support this idea, but it is what it is. So we have 6 to 7 test environments, each with the different configurations and capabilities. If you have to drive a user experience testing, we need certain configurations to be in place already with certain level of test data. So those details, as and when we figured out, we started putting those details also as part of our testing or test process or the test plan with a little bit more details. And right now, this is what we have been using. Feel free to start with this, improve this, or just get inspired and bring your own template. But the idea here is keep the ball rolling. Don't forget, identify yourself as a human. Do not compete with any AI ML models. Keep them as a complement, don't compete. We are humans and we have to take pride in being human. Having said that, good organizations sell great products. But great organizations sell best experiences. And you be an influencer to sell the best experience possible in this industry. And in internet doubles every 6 months, which is crazy, right? And if we have to help our businesses to run the best, it's only possible to bring in the best user experience. Right, having said that, I think I'm well on time. These are some references. I highly recommend reading the book from Laws of UX by Jon Jablonski. It is really good. I keep going through this book over and again if I have to learn something new. and I highly recommend you also please do it. So that's the end of it. Those are my social handles. So please connect with me, go through my website, give me your feedback. I would love to learn and connect with all of you. And it is great to be part of this stage, sharing my thoughts with you. So thank you.
Thank you so very much. So far, we have 2 questions, now 3. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see the first one. How to improve feedback to make it more visible or attracting more respect? Sometimes product teams might ignore the feedback from QA teams.
Good question. Yes, it happens. And I am one of the victims too for a very long time. Until I became a manager or a lead. So I want to get to the more practical part of our life, right? I don't want to be in the sky. When you have to give the feedback, you also always have to use the right channels, right time. Mostly the young test engineers that I have worked with, they get into too much emotional overload. They want the changes then and there. Sometimes we have to let go a few things to get the bigger fish. So what you have to let go to get what else is something that you may have to calculate, right? So if you have to do an impactful feedback, firstly, you need a lot of patience, wait for the right time, use right channels. Of course, being respectful definitely helps, but if you're a subject matter expert, while I said that's my strategy always, be better than the rest in the team. You will rise above. So that's the best way to influence. Long answer.
Perfect. No. It's perfectly fine. How to differ UX issue versus personal opinion about workflow preference? Are there some techniques to decide besides A/B or pools?
So A/B pools or A/B testing, what we call, is mostly used to check how the users are behaving or responding to the changes that we are making in the UI. So the best way is always to give examples, like I said about the laws. Okay? Hey, this is being said in this way in this law, in the Hicks law, according to the Hicks law. Don't you think this can make a difference in our UI? You know what? I also saw Postal's law being applied to another banking application. Who is our competitor? Why don't we just think about it? You know, driving such type of conversations can always keep the door open to do further conversation. The moment we become sour, everything gets closed. So this is how we drive and keep things different from being personal to, professional. I hope this helps.
I'm pretty sure this helps. Okay, where to start testing UX if it has never been introduced before to the team?
Good question. Let me gather my thoughts. Where to start if it has never been introduced? Okay. If it has never been introduced, it's the first time they're listening or hearing. 100% I'm sure they will reject the whole idea and they say, this doesn't make sense. I have another API to develop. I have another feature to deliver. So always start with education. Educate your team. Involve your team. Let them know why this is important. Take good amount of time to build the foundation to say why this is important. Once you set the note of why it is important, rest all follows its path. Then you can drive the conversation with your UX experts or UX designers and involve them in your testing process to start with. In the meanwhile, you can learn their art and also add it as part of your usual testing process. So that's a good start.
Okay, one more, I think. Recent web apps have a lot of dynamic components and animations. How should we approach these from a QA point of view?
Very good question. Whoever asked, and all the 5 likes, it got it. See, when you have animations and videos and all part of that, you remember I showed you web aesthetics, one research that was done. So there are so many such researches that has been done. You can find a ton of such resources out in the internet. First, you have to go through the aspects that goes behind these animations. There are certain standards, formats, templates being followed in the industry. It's always the case. It's just that we are not aware of it. So make yourself aware of that, and then drive the conversations from there. It makes life easy.
Sowmya, thank you so very much. It was lovely having you here. Can I have one more big applause?
I absolutely enjoyed. Thank you.
We also enjoyed it, and thank you so much for the nice compliments on the questions. I'm sure it will help other people ask questions in the future. Thank you so very much, and enjoy the afternoon.